Hello game makers, this is GameMaker Rob, and in today's episode we cover saving and loading maps inside the map editor. We also cover saving and loading maps externally so we can get back to them between sessions, as well as allow other people to play them. And one more thing we added is a feature to change the width and size of our maps, so we can have 10 different maps of 10 different widths and heights. It just adds for a lot of creativity, so let's get started. Okay, so if we go into OBJ editor, into the create event, we're going to add two new variables. What these are for is we are going to be converting our maps into one big string, and then we're going to be saving those big strings into a list called battle map list. Current map number is just going to track which map we are currently on. That's it basically. Okay, so now we are going to create a script, and we're going to call it SCR save map. What this script is going to do is we're going to pass it the grid, our DS terrain grid that holds all the data, and we're going to run through that grid cell by cell. We're going to grab the list from every cell, convert the list into a string using DS list write, this function here. And then once we've turned all the lists into a string, we're going to use DS grid write to change our temporary grid into a string, and then we're going to save that inside our battle map list in a different part of our object. So that's the basics of what this script is going to do. More in depth, so grid to copy from equals argument 1, that's going to be DS terrain grid. Grid height and grid width, we're going to be able to have different sized maps. That's why we can't just have a hard setting like V cells and H cells. DS grid to write to is going to be our temporary grid. We're only going to use it in this script, and then we're going to destroy it here. This double for loop is going to get the list from DS terrain data. We're going to turn that list into a string, and then save that list string in the corresponding cell of grid to write to our temporary grid. Once we've done all that with the lists, we're going to convert grid to write to into a big string with DS grid write, and then like I said, outside of the script we're going to save this big string into one of the entries of battle map list, and then we can just get rid of this grid because we don't need it anymore, the temporary one that we just made. And then also I've got a couple of debug messages, so you're going to be able to see what a list string looks like, as well as the final string for the grid. All we need to do now is actually implement this in code. So if we're going to the step event of OBJ editor, we're going to have a new region. It's going to be called save, load, create new, delete current. It's going to be using these 4 scripts that we're going to make. The first one being script save map. If you look at the save map script, you can see that we return the grid and list string. This bit, basically the big string of the grid. So we're returning that string. That's going to be saved in this entry of battle map list. That's what this is for. Basically, whenever we press F5 on the keyboard, we're going to run this. So if we run the game now, we can see this in action. Doesn't really matter what we do because we're not going to be able to load it yet. So I'm going to press F5, and if you look at your output, you should see something like this. All these short ones here, these are the lists being converted into strings. And then this big one is the grid string. So that's what's being saved. This is one of our maps basically. Okay, so now we are going to create a new script called SCR load map. what the script is going to do is we are going to pass it DS terrain data, and we're going to pass it the battle map lists. We're gonna basically create a temporary grid, and we're going to load the string from battle map list into that grid. So it's going to end up being a grid with every cell containing a string, and then we're going to convert that string into a list, save that list into DS terrain data. There's a little bit more to it, but that's the basics. So grid to copy from is going to be our temporary grid. So we're just going to make it with a width and height of 1. It doesn't matter about the width and height because it's going to get resized by DS grid read anyway. So we want to check as well that the string we're grabbing from battle map list isn't undefined and isn't empty. As long as it isn't any of those two, then we're going to run the rest of this. So DS grid read is going to be a very useful function. It's going to convert our string that's saved in battle map list. It's going to convert it into a grid, which is what grid to copy from is going to become. At this point, like I said, grid to copy from is just going to hold a load of strings in its cells. We also need to get rid of our existing lists from inside DS terrain data. The reason for that is because we don't know how many lists we're going to want at this point, because we can have different sized maps. So that's the main reason for that. So this double for loop is just going to destroy every list from DS terrain. Then we want to get the width and height of our temporary grid and store them in grid width, grid height. We then want to resize DS terrain. That's what this does. And then this double for loop is going to get the string. Well, it's going to first of all create a list. It's going to convert the string from whatever cell we're trying to read in the temporary grid. It's going to convert that into a list. So now we've got a list with data like we did before. And then we're going to save that list in the corresponding spot in our editor grid, DS terrain. Once we've gone through our double for loop, we no longer need the temporary grid, so we're going to destroy it, and we're going to return DS terrain data back to itself. If for any reason the string we're trying to read is undefined or it's empty, we're just going to show a message to say map failed to load, and we're going to return grid to copy from. So DS terrain data stays the same. So that's what this script's going to do. So now we're going to add something in the step event just to make use of load map. So this region here is going to be load the map. We want to check first of all that we have some saved maps, otherwise we don't need to do this at all. If we press Shift and Q, then we're going to reduce map number by 1 if we can, and then whatever current map number equals, we're going to load that map from battle map list. If we press Shift and E, then current map number is going to increase by 1, and we're going to again load the corresponding map from battle map list. So once you have this down, we're going to need to add one more script before we can test save and load map. We're going to add this one here, scr create map. All this is going to do basically is clear the lists from DS terrain data. That's all this is going to do. Hopefully by now this is self-explanatory. Double for loop. We're going to grab the list from DS terrain data. Just reset the values like we did when we first created it. That's all this is going to do. So again, we're going to go back into the step event of OBJ editor, and we're going to just checked to see if we press enter. If we do, then we're just going to create a new map. Like I said, all it's going to do is just clear the lists and reset them to the original data. So once you've got that, run the game. So I'm just going to make this one very snowy, save it, F5, so it says map saved here. Then I want to create a new map, so press enter. It says new map created, change it to water, press F5. Let's make one more. Let's have a higher map with water and a chasm or something. There we go. Save this one. And then if we press Shift and Q or Shift and E, we can switch between them like so, because we've got our map saved now. So as long as you have this, then you are in the same place as me. Okay, so the last script we're going to do right now is we're going to do SCR delete map. Pretty simple. We're just passing it the current map number. So all this script is going to do is just delete the big grid string from battle map list. This check here is just making sure that current map number is going to not be too big, because we're then going to try and load a map afterwards in the step event. That's why we are returning it there. Okay, so in the step event, we're going to add one more thing to this region. It's just this here, delete the map. If we press backspace, then we just want to delete the map basically. Like I said, we're going to pass map number to current map number just to cap it at the list size of battle map list. And here we're going to try and load the next map, whatever current map number equals. That's what it's for. So let's run the game. I'm going to make a snow map again. Save it. Make a new map. High water. Save it. Make a new map. Let's do chasm in the middle. Save it. So I'm just going to delete this one now, and it loads the next one. Let's see if I can still switch between them. Yes, I can. Let's delete the first one. It goes back to the water one. Let's delete the last one, and we get an error. So all we're going to do is going to say if DS list size battle map list is greater than 0, then we're going to load the next map. Else we're going to run script create new map, like so. There we go. So this check should stop us getting that crash. Let's run that again one more time. Save, new map. Save. Delete, delete. So if we have no saved maps, it's just going to give us a blank one like that. Okay, so you may have noticed that we are not saving maps persistently. We can go into the editor, make new maps, save them, switch between them, but as soon as we close down the game, they're gone forever. So we're going to have to save them in an external file, and we're going to do two scripts for that now. The first one is going to be called SCR load game data. That's this one here. It's going to use ini open, and I'm going to call it battlemapstrings.ini or .ini. Total maps is going to basically tell us how many battle maps we've stored inside it. We're going to make this a new variable as well in the create event in a minute. This for loop is just going to transfer whatever's stored in the ini back into our battle map list. If you remember, at the start of the game, battle map list is going to be empty. So we're going to run SCR load game data at the start of the game, and it's going to fill battle map list with all of our maps that we've created. And then we're going to close the ini file. We're going to check to see if we actually did have any maps to load. If we did, then we're going to load the first one. So once you've got this script down, go into the create event. We're going to add this total maps equals 0. We're never going to change this ourselves. It's just going to be in the scripts for loading and saving maps. That's all we need it for. So just make a note of that if you need to. And at the very bottom of the create event, we want to run this script, SCR load game data. Bear in mind that we haven't saved anything externally yet. We're going to do that next. We're just going to test to make sure that we don't get any crashes when we run the game. So let's run it. There we go. So the reason I've done that is it's pretty easy to make a save script first, save stuff, and then make a load script and then load the data. But what happens if you're trying to run the load script and there isn't any data to load? You want to check that first. That was the point of doing that now. So the last thing we want to do in terms of saving loading is our save game script. It's pretty simple. It's called SCR save game data. We're going to open the same ini file, battlemapstrings.ini. For as many entries as there are in battle map list, we're going to write a string called data string. The number is going to be I, so 0, 1, 2, 3. And what we're saving is the strings that are stored inside the list. We also want to save how many maps we have, just for the benefit of our load game data script. And then close it. That's all we need. And where we're going to put this script is, we're going to put it in the cleanup event. This is really useful for stuff we want to run when we're done with a particular object. And it should run even if the game is closed down. So SCR save game data is going to go here, like that. So now we're going to test this. Let's run the game. I'm going to make a snowy map first of all, then save it, then new map. I'm going to make water and save it. New map, let's have high grass, save it, and then let's have a chasm in the middle, save it. We're going to close the game and then run it again. And there we go. We've loaded our first map. If we press Shift and E, we've got the second one. There's our high one. And there's the last one. So this is how we're going to import maps between games. One thing we are going to need to do though, for people to actually play our game and take advantage of the maps that we've saved, is we're going to need to include the file that we made. So where it says included files. How to do that is we want to find where our maps are stored. Let me just get rid of this stuff, sorry. So for me, I have a shortcut to local apps. So this folder here, and this is the working directory for GameMaker. So if you type working directory in like an object like this, working directory, and then middle mouse click, it's going to tell you all about where GameMaker saves information. You're going to have to find the path yourselves to your own files, because it may be different from mine. But for this particular version that I'm running right now, is this the one? Yeah, so the path for my files is C/users Rob's Alienware computer name app data local, then the name of the project, and this file, if you look at it, it contains the strings that pop up in the readout. This data here is our maps, basically. Just save the strings, and so we want to include that file. You don't need to do this right now, but at some point you're going to need to do this for other people to play it. So insert included file. Mine's in C users Alienware, and then I believe it's local app data. So you see how it's kind of shaded out. This one here, app data for me, local, and then it's in local, and then this one here. So now we can see we have included the file. That's how we're going to be able to have other people see the same maps that we've made. That's all you've got to do. Okay, so the last thing we are going to do today is have the ability to change the width and height of our maps, so we can have differently sized maps for different missions. First thing we're going to do is nothing inside the create event. We're done here for today. So let's just minimize this. Let's go into the step event. So first of all, previously we were clamping grid X and grid Y to 0 and either H cells -1 or V cells -1. Because we're going to have grids of different size, we need to be checking the size of the current grid's width and height. That's what this is going to do instead. So that's the first thing. I've also decided to use the WASD keys for increasing or decreasing the size of the map. We're already using them for the camera, so we're going to have a check to see if we're not pressing shift. If we're not pressing shift and we press the WASD keys, then the camera is going to move as normal. If we press the shift key and WASD keys, then we're going to be changing the height and width of the map instead. So just make sure you got this line there. And one other small thing to do before we get into the nitty gritty is the draw event here. We're just going to change these top two lines. Previously we were using V cells and H cells, but again the width or height of the map of the grid may be different, so we're just going to check the current height and width of DS terrain data like so. So once you've got these two lines, then we're going to get into the actual meat of this now. So we've got a brand new region called change height or width of the map. So we're going to check to see if we press shift. This first region is going to decrease the grid height. Going to check the height of the grid first of all. If it's greater than 1, then we're going to reduce it. We don't want to end up with a grid of 0 height, so that's why we're doing this check there. The main thing we have to do is we want to make sure we are destroying the lists that we no longer need, because by pressing W we want to reduce the height, which means an entire row of lists are no longer needed. So that's what this for loop is going to do, get rid of them, and then we're just going to resize the S terrain data to its previous size, but just -1 on the height. That's all this does. Then increase grid height. So the first thing we're going to do is grab the current height. We're going to grab the height we want to set it to, and then resize the grid. And then we're going to be adding new lists to that new row. So a for loop for this new row, create a list, set up the initial data for the list, so floor index, decoration index, height, that kind of thing. Once we've done that, we're just going to save the list in the new location for DS train data. And it's just the same for the width really. This one's going to reduce the width. Check to make sure XX is greater than 0. Destroy all the lists that we don't need. Resize the grid. We're going to add width to this one. So resize the grid first. Make space for the lists basically. Use a for loop for every entry, every cell. Create a list. Populate the list with data. Save the list in the new cell. And that's it. So let's run the game. So I'm going to increase the width of this one, but I'm going to reduce the height like that, and then save it. Let's go to the next map. Let's increase the width and the height, and then let's color it in with water, and then save it. Let's go to the next one, leave that one as it is, and the last one, let's make it just longer, like that, and then save it. One thing we should do is let's make a new map, and let's just reduce the width and height as much as we can. Make sure we don't get any errors. So we end up with like a one tile grid, which we can make changes to, but it's not really visible because of the mouse cursor. There we go. So this is our map, just high water basically. So let's close it down. Let's run the game. Make sure that our new maps have their proper widths and heights. Cool. So there's the first map, second map, third map, fourth map. They're all different heights and widths and everything. So that sets us up for making proper maps now to play on. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series so far. It's been really fun learning how to do this stuff, and these 4 episodes are going to help you with other games as well. You know, making your own maps like this is a really cool, fun thing to do. And you can add things onto it as well, as long as you understand what we did here. There's nothing stopping you adding on new features. Anyway, I will stop. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.